33, Julian Vance decided it was time to marry. He was the sole heir to the Vance Corporation, the last direct line, and the peripheral branches of his family were watching him like predators. They would have loved nothing more than for him to waste his life away on men, leaving them to tear apart his legacy like hyenas feasting on a carcass. Julian, however, had already selected the mother for his heir. She was not of high society, merely an actress with a delicate beauty and a serene temperament. Her career was respectable but not dazzling. He would offer her a name, a position, and a child. He never intended for me to know the details. He constantly instructed his staff to maintain their discretion. But some things I always found a way to know. His relatives would whisper in my ear, prodding me, hoping I would disrupt Julian's plans. This time, I did not erupt as I usually would have. I remained quiet, as if I knew nothing at all. When Julian came to see me, I behaved as I always had, draping myself over him, kindling the familiar fire between us. My health was a constant shadow, my body a vessel for endless medications. Julian was rarely able to find complete release with me. In the past, opportunistic people had tried to present him with younger, more beautiful, more resilient men than myself. I would always find out and create a storm. I would refuse my medicine and refuse his bed. Julian's temper was short, the lines between his brows etched deep. When he was angry, he would hurl the medicine bowl against the wall. He would say I shouldn't think so highly of myself. And he was right. I was just his kept lover. He gave me money and paid for my treatments. I, in turn, had nothing to offer but this broken body. But I had a temper of my own. I insisted that as long as we were together, he couldn't be with anyone else. I found the thought repulsive. Julian was not that kind of man, but he disliked my attempts to control him. He would often mock me, remarking that I acted more like the patron in our arrangement than he did. This time, I didn't cause a scene. I wanted him to be well, to have a healthy child. I hoped, even, that he might forget about me, his greatest burden. I was born with a congenital heart defect, abandoned at an orphanage as an infant. I grew up stumbling through life, and my doctors had told me I wouldn't live to see 20. At 19, during my university years, I met Julian when he returned to our alma mater for an anniversary celebration. I was the one who approached him, asking him to take me in. He managed to push back my expiration date by 2 more years. Yet, I still looked as fragile and deathly as the day we first met. Perhaps I had spoken of my own demise so often that, over time, Julian stopped believing it. He had more faith in his ability to keep me alive for many years to come. During the days he was busy with his engagement, I died quietly in the sunroom he had built for me, my own private greenhouse. It wasn't intentional. I had planned to go somewhere far away. But before I could even climb out of bed, my strength failed me. The ringing of a cell phone woke me. I was in a cramped, narrow room. Rain was falling outside, a soothing, static-filled sound. The ceiling was leaking, and a single drop landed on my face. Felt like a tear, only colder. I blinked, instinctively raising my right hand to wipe it away. The hand was weak, the skin soaked, my fingertips puckered and white. A gruesome, puckered wound gaped at my wrist. On a stool by the bed sat a large basin filled with cooled, dark red water. It was a deeply unsettling sight. I eventually found a phone with a shattered screen under the pillow. The word agent was flashing on it. I answered the call. The voice on the other end was furious. He yelled, asking Caleb Hayes if he still wanted to pay off the loan sharks. He said he had worked hard to find me an opportunity to meet someone with money, and that I had better get myself over there immediately. He sent a location to my phone. I stood up, my head spinning. I glanced at my reflection in the fragmented screen. The features were well-defined, the face handsome. It was a face I didn't recognize. Though pale, the lips were bloodless, not the telltale purple of my own. I accepted the fact that I had been reborn into someone else's body with surprising ease. Who wouldn't want to live? When I arrived at the location my agent had sent, regret washed over me. He shoved a waiter's uniform and a name tag into my hands and pointed towards a sprawling villa, telling me to go inside. A quick glance confirmed my fears. It was Julian and Serafina's engagement party. My lips tightened unconsciously, and a sharp pang shot through my chest. For a moment, I thought my heart condition had followed me into this new life. I asked what I was supposed to do in there. The agent slapped me on the back, exclaiming that it was obvious. With my acting skills, my only hope was to find a wealthy patron. He said the place was filled with rich men, and if any of them took a liking to me, I wouldn't have to play corpses for a living anymore. I wondered why so many young people these days were so desperate they had to find patrons. I asked what would happen if I refused. The agent's mouth turned down in a sneer, his eyes glaring. He told me if I didn't go, my old mother lying in the hospital wouldn't make it. Misfortune is always merciless, preying on the wretched. And I, Leo Sterling, was doubly cursed. With a sigh, I obediently changed into the uniform and blended into the party. My goal was not to find a patron. I wanted to watch Julian take the next step in his life, unburdened by me. The first day of Leo Sterling's death coincided perfectly with Julian Vance's engagement party. Perhaps it was a sign from the universe that I had been standing in the way of his happiness. The party was a lavish affair, which was to say it was a networking event for businessmen. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and champagne. Beautiful women clung to the arms of powerful men. I moved among them, carrying a tray, a ghost at the feast. I kept my distance from the center of it all, from Julian. Midway through the evening, Julian moved toward a quiet corner where his secretary was waiting. I happened to be passing by and caught a fragment of their conversation. The secretary reported that the housekeeper had said Mr. Sterling was still sleeping and hadn't replied to any messages. Julian raised his wrist to check his watch, his brow furrowing as he questioned why he was still asleep. I didn't linger to hear more. I refilled my tray with glasses of red wine and continued my rounds. Julian had provided me with a housekeeper, a nutritionist, and a personal doctor. The nutritionist managed my diet, the housekeeper took care of the condo, and the doctor was on call for my frequent episodes. Only the four of us were ever there. Julian himself wasn't a daily presence, and lately, he had been too busy to visit. The housekeeper would never enter my room without permission. She would knock, and only after I responded would she come in. If I didn't answer, she would, at most, open the door to check on me before leaving my lunch on the nightstand. I often skipped breakfast. The doctor had already checked on me once that day. It was normal that they wouldn't know I had already died. I wasn't particularly sad. I should have been dead long ago. Before the official engagement announcement could be made, the party came to an abrupt halt. The already serious expression on Julian's face turned deathly pale. He abandoned Serafina, his impeccably tailored suit a stark contrast to his graceless flight as he stumbled towards the parking garage. I watched the color drain from his lips and felt a wicked sense of satisfaction. A few minutes later, Serafina took a call. The blood drained from her face as well, and she staggered out of the party. For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt for her. The fact that my death could cause Julian such pain was exhilarating. It meant, at least, that I had held a place in his heart. How long that would last didn't matter. All that mattered was that he had cared. But Serafina was innocent. She was pitiful. There was nothing I could do to compensate her. I could only slip away quietly. I had no interest in remaining at the party to serve others. In this life, I had only ever served Julian. He had spoiled me. Feeling no guilt at all, I hummed a little tune and snuck away. I made a trip to the hospital. That evening, the agent called again, asking if I had managed to land a patron. I had completely forgotten about it. I hesitated before answering honestly that I had not. The agent was furious, railing about what I was going to do about my mother, about the debts my father had left behind. It wasn't my mother. It wasn't my debt. I coldly stated that it had nothing to do with me. Just staying alive was hard enough. I was selfish. I had known that from a young age. In my last life, I had only cared for Julian. From now on, I would only care for myself. Everyone else was inconsequential. I looked at the bandaged wound on my wrist, my face devoid of expression. If the original owner of this body, Caleb Hayes, had any intention of dealing with this mess, he wouldn't have chosen to die. Since he had already given up, why should I take on his burdens? My words seemed to stun the agent into silence. He asked incredulously if Caleb Hayes had lost his mind. He reminded me how I had begged him for a chance, promising to do anything. I smiled, looking out the window at the crescent moon. I told him that people change. I had no money, so how could I possibly help? But I reassured him that I would work hard. The agent was silent for a moment before asking what work I could possibly find. He told me to face reality. I couldn't get any roles. Of course, I had faced reality. If I couldn't get work as an actor, I would find something else. In the years I was sick, I had loved playing video games. But they were frustrating, and the excitement often triggered my heart condition. Julian forbade me from playing too much. I checked Caleb Hayes' bank account. $3. No wonder he tried to kill himself. That was barely enough to cover the bank service fees. I downloaded an app for paid gaming companions and streamers. I took a photo of my face, my abs, and my chest to use as a profile picture and registered an account. My bio read, 18, 6 feet 0 inches, 18 centimeters. Using my looks to my advantage was my greatest skill. After registering, I quit the app and downloaded the most popular MOBA. Caleb Hayes had a max-level account, though it hadn't been used in years. As a returning player, I went on a 20-game winning streak in one night, climbing the ranks effortlessly. I then posted my impressive record on the companion app. It didn't take long for the offers to start rolling in. I spent 2 weeks immersed in gaming, and I almost forgot about Julian Vance. Then, I searched for him online. He was trending. The headlines were sensational. Vance Corp CEO's engagement to actress Serafina Reyes called off. The mystery of his true love's gender and fate. Coincidence or conspiracy? CEO's true love dies on his engagement day. The speculative articles attracted a swarm of gossip mongers and keyboard warriors. But my real identity remained hidden. Even my gender was a subject of debate. A flicker of something went through me. I saw a news interview with Julian, looking haggard and gaunt, and I frowned. I was already dead, so why was he still protecting my identity so fiercely? Wasn't he about to marry someone else? Who was this performance for? A wave of irritation washed over me. I went out for a walk to clear my head, stopping by an electronics store to look at streaming equipment. I didn't have enough money yet, so I settled for a cheap setup. That night, I started a facecam stream. It was foolish not to make money when the opportunity presented itself. I would do whatever it took. If necessary, I would even flirt with the boundaries of suggestive content. There was only one problem. I had a bad temper and a sharp tongue. I was incapable of saying sweet things. I just sat there with a cold expression, wearing whatever outfits my top donors requested, and played the game with a relentlessly critical commentary. When I was Leo, I had to be calm and accommodating. I was used to it. Unexpectedly, this created a compelling dynamic. Many viewers said I had the detached, authoritative vibe of an AI god, and they loved it. Some even wanted to team up with me just so I would insult them. That was almost too easy. Money started pouring in. Why couldn't I have done this in my past life? I wouldn't have needed a patron. It was all Julian's fault for not letting me be in the public eye. I had thought it was because he was possessive of me. But then he went off to get married. The realization hit me late. I was angry that Julian was getting married. My anger manifested as a rampage in the game's virtual canyon. The comments flooded in. One user asked who had provoked me, noting my murderous energy. Another begged me to insult them. Someone else sent a private message. A viewer commented on how exciting it was to watch me berate people with a straight face. and then asked if I would consider streaming in a shirt and suspenders while brandishing a small leather whip. I glanced at the comment and replied magnanimously that if they sent a rocket, I'd arrange it. I promised to whip a teammate for every time I died. No exceptions. The chat exploded with laughter, joking that the teammates would bear the brunt of it all. People urged the wealthy viewers to donate so they could witness the spectacle. Suddenly, the screen lit up with a series of super effects, one after another. 10 in a row. They were from a user with a solid black avatar named My Love Is Lost. The chat identified him as a whale. Someone commented on his username, guessing he must be in his 40s or 50s and wondering if he was into this kind of thing too. The whale sent a golden, scrolling message across the screen. Streamer, smile for me. $30,000 just to see me smile? I wasn't very good at smiling. Even when I was with Julian, I rarely smiled. I pulled at the corners of my mouth, producing a grimace that was more of a twitch than a smile. The chat noted how reluctant I looked. Someone joked that I wouldn't get in trouble for such half-hearted fan service. My own pathetic sense of humor found it hilarious. The whale sent another 10 super effects. The scrolling message read, "Very beautiful. Just as terrible as my late love's smile. Thank you." I frowned. He was being presumptuous. He didn't reply. After spending a fortune, he vanished from the stream as quietly as he had appeared. The chat was a mix of confused amusement and sadness. They wondered if My Love Is Lost had truly lost his love. Some speculated it was a publicity stunt, that he was in on it with me to get more donations. Others dismissed it as just another game played by the wealthy. I looked at my viewer count. It had jumped from a few hundred to 10,000. I was going to make a killing. My agent called. He asked why, with this kind of talent, I had been content playing dead bodies. I replied innocently that I had only just discovered it myself. The agent, exasperated, offered me a gig. He said the agency had noticed my sudden popularity and had booked me on a reality show centered around gaming and fabricated romances. I wasn't interested. I politely declined, saying I didn't want a date. The agent clarified that it was just acting, following a script, not a real relationship. I retorted that I was afraid others would fall in love with me. The agent remarked that I had become incredibly shameless. I shot back that it came with the territory. You can't make money if you're too concerned with face. The agent cut to the chase. The penalty for breaking my contract was $3 million. I immediately confirmed that I had received the message and asked when I needed to be there. The agent said it was in a month, and that I should use the time to build up my social media following. He advised me to smile more, remarking that I used to smile quite a bit and wondering why I now constantly wore a deadpan expression. That irked me. I told him my deadpan face was still better looking than his. He told me to get lost. A month later, I joined the cast. I familiarized myself with the show's format. 2 teams of 5, a mix of men and women. The show would film for a week, with team members being randomly reassigned every 2 days. Daily meals and accommodations were determined by game outcomes. The winning team got good food and nice living quarters. The losers got the opposite. The show was designed to test the contestants' teamwork and tolerance. On the final day, each person would secretly choose their most compatible partner. If 2 people chose each other, they would form a sweet duo and get to invite 3 professional players to join their team, taking on the other contestants. If the choice wasn't mutual, they would form a solo team, inviting 4 friends from their in-game list, and be challenged by the other groups. The final winning team would receive a prize of $500,000, plus a mysterious award from the sponsors. The show aimed to create a variety of potential pairings for viewers to follow, while also promoting the game. And to save money, the show had cast mostly unknown actors. The $50,000 prize was a huge incentive. When I arrived, there were only 9 contestants, including myself. The 10th was late. The director explained that the final contestant was a guest star who would arrive the next day. He instructed us to draw lots for our teams and get to know each other. I wasn't paying much attention, because I had spotted Serafina Reyes. Her recent, frequent appearances in the tabloids alongside Julian had raised her profile considerably. Meanwhile, my unique streaming style and high-level gaming skills had earned me 2 million followers in a month. Looking around, it seemed Serafina and I were the most well-known of the struggling actors on the show. This was the first time I had seen her since her engagement party with Julian was cut short. She didn't look well. Her expression was dim. She interacted with the other contestants listlessly, often lost in thought. She had clearly been hurt, and I knew my death was inextricably linked to her pain. I felt a strange sense of guilt. Whenever I looked at her, my expression would soften. Later, when we drew for teams, our group ended up with only 4 people. Serafina was on my team. 2 of the contestants, including Serafina, had never played the game before. I was the most skilled player among all the contestants and the captain of Team 2. I offered to teach them, walking them through everything from the game interface to builds and hero selection. A complete novice would be overwhelmed, and the person teaching them needed the patience of a saint. I unfortunately had none, especially not for the other male contestant, Declan. He refused to listen to advice, possessed by an inexplicable confidence. I didn't coddle him, my face remaining cold. The live comments were dominated by my fans. They noted how I gave Declan the cold shoulder but treated Serafina with gentle patience. Some joked that my scripted romance was with Serafina, a ploy to change the narrative of the recent tabloid headlines. Others scoffed, saying a small show like this couldn't influence anything and they were only watching for my looks. Still, some found the dynamic appealing, pointing out how much girls love to see that kind of preferential treatment. And everyone was dying to know who the mysterious guest star was. On the first day of the show, weighed down by 2 novices and a random teammate, we lost 10 games in a row. I was playing on a smurf account with a low rank, so we were matched with genuine beginners. The AI bots would have played better than them. The loss was well-deserved. Team 1 celebrated their victory, choosing the air-conditioned rooms and a lavish meal. Team 2 stared at the creaking little fan and a meal of coarse grains in silence. Declan grabbed 2 slices of whole wheat bread and began to chew, remarking sarcastically that he never thought our team would lose with a famous streamer leading them. Serafina apologized guiltily, blaming her lack of gaming talent. The other contestant, a woman named Laura, tried to comfort them, saying it was always like this at the beginning and that it would get better with practice. She also pointed out that we still had 1 more team member to arrive, who might be a pro. Then she turned on Declan, noting that at least Serafina followed instructions, whereas he had recklessly fed the enemy team, creating several unbeatable opponents. She said not even a god could have saved that game. The atmosphere in Team 2 became tense again. The comments section debated the interaction. Some agreed that what Laura said was harsh but true. Others defended Declan, saying he was a beginner and didn't mean to lose, and that a big streamer like me shouldn't be so critical on the first day. They questioned my lack of tact and people skills. But my fans defended me, arguing that this was a reality show and drama created better television. They found the dynamic between Caleb and Declan, where Caleb forced him to stay up all night to practice survival skills, to have a frenemy's charm. Others were more invested in my interactions with Serafina, noting how I gave her the biggest room and the fan when I saw she looked unwell, telling her to rest early. They swooned over the gentle moments. Laura, meanwhile, was mostly ignored. It was the height of summer, with temperatures soaring over 100 degrees. I couldn't sleep without air conditioning. I dragged Declan into an all-night training session. At 4 in the morning, he finally broke, begging me to let him sleep. He went to bed. I went out to the courtyard to cool off. The show had rented a villa and a small farmhouse. Team 1 was in the villa, Team 2 in the farmhouse. The courtyard was cooler than the house, but it was infested with mosquitoes. Exhausted, I fell asleep on a lounge chair. In a hazy state, I thought I saw Julian. He was swatting mosquitoes away from me, applying ointment to my bites, and sitting beside me as I slept. Felt like old times. When he was at work, I would pass the time in the sunroom playing games or reading. He didn't want me to play too many games. Reading always made me sleepy, and I would often doze off there. When Julian came home, he would drape his jacket over me and sit in a patch of sunlight, quietly reading the book I had left open until I woke up. Then he would scold me, reminding me he had told me countless times not to sleep alone in the sunroom. He said if I had an episode, there would be no one to find my body. I would retort flippantly that if I died, he would finally be free. This would anger Julian. He would drag me back to the bedroom and ravage me more forcefully than usual. He'd ask if it felt good, if this was what I wanted. My lips would turn purple, my breathing would become ragged, and my heart would lose its rhythm. But I would still manage a smile, grab his tie, and pull him down for a desperate kiss before collapsing back. Weak. My mouth was always the most defiant part of me. I'd tell him it wasn't good enough and ask if he hadn't eaten. Julian would take several deep breaths to calm himself, slowing his movements. He would make me use the oxygen mask and wait until my breathing stabilized. Then he would lift me into his arms, stroking my back gently. He'd admit that no, he hadn't eaten. He would tell me, Leo Sterling, that I needed to breathe properly so I could have dinner with my patron. He'd say I couldn't die, that I still owed him a lot of money. He was right. What kind of kept man costs his patron a fortune in medical bills and still can't properly serve him? I owed him so much. Now that I was dead, the debt could never be repaid. As the dream deepened, a profound sadness washed over me. Tears streamed from the corners of my eyes. A moment later, they were gently wiped away by something warm and wet. A sense of peace settled over me, and my consciousness drifted into a deeper sleep. At 7:30 in the morning, Serafina woke me. She told me the sun was shining directly on my face and suggested I go back to my room to sleep. She offered me the fan from her room. I was momentarily dazed, looking up at the bright sky. I wondered how I could have slept so soundly through the morning sun. I shook my head at Serafina, telling her I was done sleeping and it was time to get to work. Hearing the word work, Serafina gave a soft, warm smile. She agreed and then mentioned that the final contestant had arrived and that I should go say hello. She glanced around to make sure no one was listening before leaning in to whisper that the newcomer was very important, and that I should try to get on his good side to help my future career. I was unused to such proximity with women and took a step back. I mumbled my thanks and said I'd think about it. The courtyard's cameras started recording automatically at 7:30, giving the online audience plenty to analyze. I turned to go back inside to wash up and saw a group of people standing at the doorway. The man at the front was the most conspicuous. Tall and imposing, with eyes like frozen pools. I thought I was still dreaming. I rubbed my eyes and opened them again. Julian Vance was still there, a faint, unreadable smile on his lips. He walked towards me and extended a long, powerful hand. He introduced himself as Julian Vance, the 10th contestant. I stared at his hand, both familiar and foreign. How was I supposed to introduce myself?
Hello, I'm Leo Sterling.
I've been reborn. Surprised? He would think I was insane. I managed a small smile and shook his hand. My name is Caleb Hayes, I said, captain of Team 1. It's a pleasure to meet you. Julian's grip tightened for a second before he released my hand. He commented that my name was lovely. I was lost in the memory and forgot to thank him. 3 years ago, I had stopped Julian on campus. He had asked for my name. I told him my name was Leo Sterling. He had said it was a lovely name. Then he took me home. This time it would be different. Julian was almost certainly here for Serafina. I couldn't go home with him. I had to keep my distance to let him live a normal life. Julian knew how to play video games. I had taught him myself. He had only agreed to play with me occasionally if I promised to follow his rules. We would only play a few games each day. But he was a very passive player. No matter which hero he chose, he would just follow me around the map. Our teammates called us conjoined twins. I would yell at him for making me lose. He would give me a cool glance and say with a slight movement of his thin lips that he was just playing with me. I told him to pick a support character then, since the other lanes needed players. After that, he would always pick a character that could attach to mine, spending the entire game just riding on my character's head. So, when he picked that same character on the show, our teammates and the production crew were stunned. Declan put a hand to his chin, looking utterly bewildered but not daring to say anything. He asked Mr. Vance if perhaps he had chosen the wrong character. Julian didn't even look up. He said no, this was his main. I couldn't help but laugh. I told Declan it was fine, and that Julian could support Serafina. Declan protested, whining that he was the marksman and should be the one getting support. I told him he was too reckless, and that with a support, he would just end up in a 2 versus 5 fight. Declan's face flushed with embarrassment. Julian turned his head, his deep gaze meeting mine. He asked quietly if I was telling him what to do. He stated he would support whomever he pleased. Fine, I would endure it. Serafina looked from Julian to me, her expression a mixture of confusion. For the rest of the day, Julian was attached to me. Perhaps he saw me as the most promising player. To be honest, he made the right choice. Our coordination was flawless. We won every game that day. We would be sleeping in the villa and eating a gourmet meal. I had no idea that a new, unexpected ship was sailing furiously in the comments. The viewers were asking if this was right. They were captivated by the image of the stoic prince-like support character riding on the cold-faced assassin. They marveled at how perfectly we coordinated, diving under enemy towers to secure kills, with Julian protecting my character flawlessly. People commented that even they and their partners didn't have that level of synergy, and that it looked like we had played together countless times. My technical skills also drew praise. The existing ships, like me with Serafina or Declan, were no match for the new pairing of Julian and Caleb. The fans were obsessed. Some viewers were still in denial, insisting that Julian was there to win back Serafina, reminding everyone that they had been engaged. They argued that Julian was just afraid to approach her directly because she was still angry. But others countered, asking why, if that were the case, he was sticking to Caleb instead of Serafina. After the day's filming was over, the other contestants flocked to Julian, trying to network. Julian ignored them all. He sat down next to me. Seeing that I was still engrossed in a game, he watched silently for a few minutes. Then he spoke suddenly, asking why my keybind settings were different from the standard ones. His question broke my concentration, and I was immediately killed by the enemy team. I was furious. I pushed his face away, telling him not to talk to someone while they were playing and to wait until I was finished. Julian fell silent, as quiet as a mouse. By the time I finished the game, I had forgotten about his question. I wandered off to eat dinner, took an early shower, and fell asleep the moment my head hit the pillow. I was exhausted. I hadn't slept well the night before, and my nerves had been on edge all day. In the middle of the night, I woke up thirsty. I went downstairs to get a glass of water. The TV in the living room was on, but the sound was muted. Someone was crying. By the light of the screen, I saw it was Serafina. Her face was streaked with tears, her sobs occasional, choked gasps. If not for the stillness of the night, I might not have heard her. I hesitated, unsure if I should go down to comfort her. Before I could decide, Julian emerged from a downstairs room and sat beside her. He told her he was sorry. Serafina shook her head, wiping her face. She said it wasn't his fault, that he had his own difficulties. She was just having trouble sleeping, thinking about the past. She asked him if he was okay. Julian was silent for a few seconds, then lowered his head with a faint smile. He was fine, he said. He had found him again. Serafina paused, her expression filled with pity. She asked how that could possibly be fine. She told him not to be like this, that he looked so pitiful. I didn't listen to the rest. I was too thirsty. I went straight back to the bathroom, drank some tap water, and returned to bed. But I couldn't fall back asleep. They must have reconciled. I found him again. He had said it himself. And Julian had followed her all the way to this show. He must like Serafina very much. And Serafina, too. Isn't caring for someone a sign of love? It was good. Serafina was a good person. Julian was a good person. They were a good match. I buried my face in the covers, unable to stop the tears from flowing. My heart ached. It hurt more than it ever had when I was Leo Sterling. Why? Caleb Hayes' heart was perfectly healthy. The next morning, I came downstairs with swollen eyes. I took some ice from the freezer and pressed it against them. Julian was up early, making breakfast. His eyes followed me. Seeing my state, he brought a plate of light, nutritious breakfast over to me. He handed it to me and asked what was wrong with my eyes. It felt so natural that I responded in kind, taking a bite of the sandwich with one hand and leaning over to sip the perfectly warmed soy milk with the other. Before I had even swallowed, I froze. I pulled back, swallowing with difficulty. The food was tasteless. I told him it was nothing. I had just drunk too much water before bed and was bloated. Julian seemed to find nothing strange in my explanation. He pushed the soy milk closer to me, his brow furrowed slightly. He stated that I hadn't drunk any water before bed last night. What was wrong with him? Why was he watching me so closely? Was this how he pursued a woman, with such casual confidence that he had time to worry about his teammates? Unbelievable. I dropped the ice cubes and took the soy milk, eating and drinking furiously. I was exceedingly polite. "Thank you, Mr. Vance," I said. "You're very kind." Julian paused, then stared at me with an unreadable smile. He said I was welcome. Without me, we wouldn't have ingredients for breakfast. So that was it. He was being nice because he wanted to ride my coattails. Not happening. We were being reassigned to new teams today. I didn't want to be on the same team as Julian. Being too close to him was painful. I needed distance to get back to a normal life. Damn it all. I was drawn for Team 1. And the bad news was Julian was also drawn for Team 1. I gritted my teeth and raised my hand, asking the director if it was possible to switch teams. The director thought for a moment and nodded, saying yes, if someone was willing to trade with me. I looked hopefully at Serafina, who had been drawn for Team 2. I asked if she wanted to switch. Serafina looked confused and was about to nod when Julian's voice cut through the air. A sharp command. Don't switch. He was insane. I was creating an opportunity for him, and he didn't even know how to seize it. I glared at him. He clenched his fists, his eyes narrowing as he looked at me. He demanded to know what game I was playing. It was like a dog biting the hand that feeds it. I couldn't hold back my anger. I jumped up, pointing at him and raising my voice. I told him I was doing it for his own good. Everyone knew Mr. Vance's engagement party had ended in disaster. He had followed her all the way here, so he should seize the opportunity to win her back. Why was he making things difficult for me? Julian was startled by my sudden outburst. He grabbed my hand and pulled me into his arms, patting my back. He repeated, all right, I understand. Don't be angry, just breathe." My breathing was a bit ragged, but not to that extent. The others stared, dumbfounded. Declan, with a look of pure, innocent confusion, asked me if I had some kind of serious illness, a disease where I couldn't get angry. Serafina looked at Julian, then at my stunned face. Her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief, then to a glimmer of hope, quickly veiled by tears. She trembled as she started to ask what Julian meant by this. Like I had been shocked by an electric current, I shoved Julian away, stumbling back several feet. I explained that I wasn't sick. I was perfectly healthy. I had a full physical before joining the show. Julian, his hands now empty, seemed to finally register what had just happened. His face darkened. He asked what I meant by what I had just said. Did I think he was here for Serafina? What else could it be? Could he possibly be here to rekindle a romance with me? Caleb Hayes and Julian Vance were strangers. Just as I was about to speak, the director suddenly intervened. breaking us apart. He reminded us that we were filming and told us to calm down. I don't know what the internet was saying, but I knew that Julian Vance had lost his mind. For the remaining 5 days, even when we weren't drawn for the same team, he used his wealth to convince others to switch with him. Even on the final day, when I chose Declan as my partner, Julian stared Declan down and told him he would be switching names with him. To prevent him from tormenting anyone else, I agreed to be his partner for the final challenge, and we proceeded to demolish the other 8 contestants. Julian was satisfied. A faint, triumphant smirk played on his lips until the end of the show. But he barely spoke to me. He just wore a perpetually cold expression. He was angry. I didn't know why he was angry. I hadn't provoked him. In the game, he clung to me. In reality, I stayed 10 feet away from him. His mood only darkened. After the show wrapped, he grabbed my arm and told me I was coming with him. The other contestants came over one by one to say their goodbyes. Serafina didn't leave. It seemed she had something to discuss with Julian. A sour feeling rose in my chest. I began to pry Julian's fingers off my arm, one by one. Julian's angry expression suddenly went blank, his eyes hollow. He asked if I hated him that much. He said he didn't stay away from home on purpose. He was trying to save me. He asked why I couldn't wait for him just a little longer. I turned my back to him. I thought to myself that Julian Vance was truly pitiful. Leo Sterling had driven him mad. It was time for this to end. I steeled myself and took a step to leave. My hand was caught again. My heart stopped. I tried to shake it free. It was Serafina who had grabbed me. She called me Mr. Sterling, saying she had something very important to ask me. The cemetery. My grave was beautiful. In front of the headstone was a bouquet of my favorite cornflowers. Their meaning is meeting and happiness. But that wasn't the point. The point was that next to my grave was another fresh one. The inscription read, "To my late husband, Evan Wilde," erected by his wife, Serafina Reyes. I was confused. I asked why they had brought me here. Julian was still silently weeping. Serafina, her eyes red, said that I was Leo Sterling. She stated that Julian would never be so kind to anyone else. She looked at Evan's photograph on the headstone. Her eyes filled with sorrow. She told me this was her love. A month and a half ago, he had been in a car accident on his way to celebrate her birthday. He had multiple fractures. Only his heart and brain were undamaged. His blood type was rare and he had signed an organ donation card. That same day, Mr. Vance had found them. Evan's dying wish was for Serafina to marry Julian. He said Julian needed a wife for appearances and Serafina needed resources and status. It was a win-win. He was cruel, forcing Serafina to agree. He told her he didn't want her to marry anyone else, that he would haunt anyone who touched her, but he wanted her to live well. Marrying a gay man was the perfect solution. He threatened that he wouldn't be able to rest in peace if she didn't agree. Secretly, he made Julian promise to give Serafina suitable resources and turn her into a star. He said that what he couldn't give her in life, he would give his life and dignity to ensure she received. He didn't care if she hated him or moved on later. If she fell in love with someone else, Julian had to let her go. And he made Julian swear, as a man who liked men, not to develop feelings for her. He would only agree to the heart transplant if Julian promised. Julian agreed. Then he turned around and told Serafina everything Evan had said. Serafina, who had been unwilling, tearfully agreed after hearing his words. Now, standing before my grave and Evan's, she wept. She told me, Mr. Sterling, that she didn't know whether to thank me or apologize. My death had come too soon, stopping the engagement. It was both a bad thing and a good thing. In truth, she and Julian had only planned to hold the engagement ceremony to give Evan peace of mind. But on that day, my heart and Evan's had stopped at almost the same time. They hadn't been able to save anyone. She took my hand and pressed it to her heart. She said, "But you're alive." Her shimmering eyes were filled with infinite hope. She asked me softly, "If you can live, Does that mean Evan can live too? My eyes welled up with tears, my hands trembling along with hers. But I couldn't make any promises. I didn't know. Julian took my hand and patted it. He told me to try, that he would help me. He said that when I reached the top, if Evan was still alive and knew I was waiting, he would surely come back to me. Julian took me home again, but he was still angry, because I hadn't asked him about the engagement. I had only listened to gossip. He was angry that I didn't trust him. He was even angrier that I had planned to stay away from him in this life. But I was curious. I asked him how he had recognized me. Julian told me to guess. He left me in my room and went to his study, locking the door. Couldn't get in. I couldn't be bothered to think about it. I started my stream. The reality show had been a huge hit, and my follower count had skyrocketed. The screen was lagging from the dazzling special effects. I saw the user ID My Love Is Lost and had a sudden realization. Couldn't be. I laughed, half in disbelief, and asked on stream, "Is that how you recognized me?" My Love Is Lost had changed his name to Glad You're Back. As always, a golden scrolling message appeared. "Your smile is still terrible. I've never seen another one so bad." Then another, "And you called my name in your sleep." The online audience grew to over 100,000. The chat went crazy. They joked that their favorite streamer had become the male lead of a romance game, attracting people wherever he went. Glad You're Back sent another message. "I am Julian Vance." There was a second of silence. Then the viewer count exploded. Another message, "You just died." I smirked, and in a spirit of reciprocity, I locked my bedroom door. In the middle of the night, Julian used a key to open my door. He slipped into my bed. His soft hair brushed against my chest. Thump, thump, thump. A steady, powerful rhythm. I held his head and asked him if he wanted to have some fun. Julian kissed my chest. He said demurely that we should probably skip it. I needed to rest. I said, "Oh, okay." The air was quiet, but breathing became increasingly erratic. Julian gritted his teeth and pressed himself against me. He asked when I had become so obedient. I burst out laughing. I flipped over and sat on his stomach. I told him not to move, I could do the work myself now. Julian really didn't move, his deep-set eyes tracing my features. He reached up and touched my lips. He said they were red and truly beautiful. I decided to pick a fight. I asked if he meant they weren't beautiful before. Julian's eyes dimmed for a moment. He said they were beautiful then too, but also terrifying. I leaned down and kissed him deeply, for a long time as proof. I told him to see I was fine, not to be afraid. Julian's gaze shifted downwards, and he grabbed hold of me. With a humorless smile, he said he was going to see if I really was 18. Damn it. He had found the provocative details I'd put on my companion app profile. I was caught. The hospital called, saying my mother wanted to see me. I took Julian with me. I hadn't actually abandoned her. After I started making money from streaming, I had been paying for her hospital bills. But I hadn't had time to visit. And since I wasn't the original soul, I didn't know how to face her. What if she found out? Would she be heartbroken? I had considered many things and decided not to go. But I had to go eventually. Caleb Hayes' biological father was a worthless gambler who never looked after his aging mother, only bled her dry. Besides me, there was no one to take care of her. I considered it payment for this body. I should at least play the part of a good grandson and make her last days comfortable. As for Caleb's father, Julian had taken care of him, sending him to prison swiftly and efficiently. My agent, too, was now very respectful in my presence. Secretly, he complained to me, asking why I had said I hadn't found a patron. He wanted to know how I had managed to land the biggest one of all. He asked if I had a conscience, stealing someone's fiancé. I just smirked. I told him I didn't have one. You need to be heartless to make big money. I told him to look at himself, still so poor after all this time. He should reflect on that.